So, Tori, I want to move into this current South Carolina football team. Obviously, again, we're talking here on a Monday. We're just 12 days away from kickoff. And I want to talk to you again about this year's Gamecock football team. And before we do, it's so funny to see it's a blessing and a curse because, again, we both kind of live for the engagement, the views, the interaction, stuff like that. It only helps business, right? It only helps your brand. It only helps what you're doing. But I think you and I both experienced the madness that can ensue, especially in a season like last year where, let's just be honest, shit hit the fan. We both have our opinions on Will Muschamp, and what's been said is what's been said. I tell everybody my thoughts are very well documented, and I'm sticking to that. But I want to say first, one thing you said last season that I don't know why you caught flack for it, but this quote should literally be, I feel like, imprinted on the stadium, which is, you can't be a killer when you sleep on silk sheets. And that's like the one thing you said last season. That was my favorite thing you said. And it was after the UNC game. And obviously we're all emotional. I mean, that was my whole Fire MustChamp rant. And we're all emotional because you've been looking forward to the season 8 months and you lay an egg like that. And I think we all had the right to say what we said. And I think we were all accurate. But my man, that quote, that's the one thing you said last season that sticks out to me. And it just, people – again, it's all quick trigger, quick to react. Everybody's so emotional in football season, but there's a lot of truth to what you said. There's a lot of truth to what you said as far as guys getting comfortable and they really haven't earned anything and, feeling like the shit don't stink. And, it's so funny. You're 33, I'm 29, but I used to be told, don't read your press clippings. Don't read your press clippings. Don't buy into the hype that people are giving you. Keep focused, keep locked in, whatever. And I feel like now, and it's not just South Carolina, but it's like the culture we're in, and especially in college football, guys don't just read their own press clippings. They engage in them. They love it. They love to read their own press clippings. And so, it kind of goes back, again, I think you made a great point. It's like guys are getting fat and happy, and they're buying into how good they are. And, when you lose a game like that UNC game last year, that it shines that light on it. But long story short, I just wanted to tell you that was one of my favorite quotes when you said last year is killers do not sleep on silk sheets. That's bottom line. That needs to be like on a T-shirt somewhere, I feel like.
Yeah, the reason why I said that is because I lived it.
Yeah.
We did more with less. And what I mean by that, we didn't have all that shiny stuff when I was in school. And I'm not mad at those kids for that. That's just what college football has turned into. But if I had anything to do with the football program or if I was running a team, I would pull back on some of the amenities these guys have. You don't need a golf course. You don't need a Darius Rucker studio. If you want to make music, go be in a band. You're here on a scholarship to play football. There are so many things that go into it. If you want to learn how to cook, go to culinary school. We don't need all this. We need you here to be locked in each and every week to play football. All this video game stuff. Man, we had a deck of cards and one PlayStation. You go in there now, ice hockey and cornhole. No, this is not a vacation. I understand they want to make the facilities very appealing for guys to be like, oh, look at my jersey, look at my helmet, look at all this swag. But what swag is when you go out there and you don't lose to the in-state rival in 4 years, 5 years. That's swag. When you go out and go beat the number one team in the country. When you go out there and impose your will on opponents who you're supposed to beat and give yourself an opportunity to play for meaningful football games. That's what swag is. That's when the fans will love you. So many guys, they get caught up in their followers or the engagement of social media to where the game is not won on there. This whole thing is really have a lot of guys confused. And when they go to the NFL, man, it hurts them because they're worried about the wrong thing. Keep the main thing, and that's football. Football and school and football, they go hand in hand. But all the other stuff, it's not going to help you. Who remembers, no offense, but who remembers the players from the teams that didn't win?
Yeah.
To this day, I can go to Columbia and people, the first thing they talk about is, hey, man, you never lost to Clemson. And I remember exactly where I was at when we beat Alabama, wherever it was, anywhere in the world. So many people, talk about that, and that's a legacy that's left, and that's something that I want those guys to experience. But the only way that's going to happen is if the guy up top pulls back and like, you know what, let's get back to the meat and potatoes. And that's what type of coach I thought he was. But, you know, the way the things have worked themselves out, he just isn't that guy. I think he's a great person, but when it comes to football and winning games, I don't think he's the best guy for the job.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, too, again, speaking to what you said, and I already kind of mentioned it, but it's not even just speaking to South Carolina, but it's a culture thing. It's a college football thing. It's, you know, just this generation thing. And again, we're not that old or anything, but it's just like the way social media has changed. You know, we live in a world where people say, oh, you know, the coaches can't put a social media ban on guys because you can't take away their voice, or, you know, I think there should be a social media ban. I think it's ridiculous, and it's a bad look. I mean, I've seen players get in spats with fans, and, like, you know, I'm not sure. I know you're well-versed in Twitter, but name searching, I've seen guys, like, go name search themselves to see what people are saying about them, even if they don't tag them in the tweets or whatever, and they're liking tweets that are, like, talking shit back to the people that are talking shit about them. And it's like, how can you be mentally locked in when you're consuming all of that? You know what I mean? So I think there's a great point to it. Now, you mentioned Coach Muschamp, and I agree with you, and I've said before, people think, oh, my God, you hate Will Muschamp. Oh, you hate him. I think he's a great dude. I think he runs a great program from Sunday to Friday, but he gets paid to win on Saturdays. And you and I, again, are both shared our opinions. We both think to this point, and listen, I would say to anyone, and I've said this before, but believing that Will Muschamp is all of a sudden going to turn into a great head coach and that he's going to have a great offense, that's the bold take. It's not bold to say that what we've seen the past 8 years is going to happen in the 9th year, and it's going to happen in the 10th. You know, I equated to this. You take a girl out on 8 dates, and she's not a great person. What do you expect that 9th time? She's shown you who she is. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I know it's a funny example, but I'll ask you on the flip side. Will Muschamp's the lead storyline this year. I think with everything with the pandemic, who knows what happens as far as if they make a move, they want to pay the buyout. I know there's been economic, ramifications that has come from everything. But I'll ask you, what do you need to see from Will Muschamp this year? Is there a win number? Because, again, it's a 10-game conference-only schedule. Is there a number of wins you need to see? Is there something specifically on the field? Like, what would make you – I'm not saying necessarily completely do a 180 and turn around on it, but just give you some hope that, hey, maybe this guy is evolving as a head coach, and maybe South Carolina can reach some heights that I maybe didn't think were possible after last year.
If you just step down from the job, I'm just gonna keep it as simple as that. And I'm not a hater. Like, Lord knows, like I've sat down with Coach Muschamp, and we've talked about media things. Like this isn't anything where I hate this dude. Like, he's a great person. And there are guys who played for Coach Muschamp that come to South Carolina, that come visit him, and they weren't South Carolina alum. Like, he has a great relationship with players, and his track record in the NFL is pretty good. He's getting a lot of guys drafted. But to exactly what you said, he gets paid to win on Saturday. And I just think the surrounding staff they have, I just think it's too many Georgia guys in the building. Like, I say it once and I say it again. It seems like we're the University of South Carolina, Georgia, Columbia campus. All those guys majority of those guys are Bulldogs, or you got some Florida Gators in there. I think it's one Gamecock on staff. That's Rod Wilson.
Yep, Rod Wilson.
And then Connor is not on field, so he's more of the life coach. And I think that hurts because it takes a Gamecock to know a Gamecock. And whenever this is what I mean by that. We're sandwiched by so many SEC schools. You have Alabama, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, all in our radius. And we're battling against in-state top 5 school in Clemson.
And North Carolina with Mac Brown's coming back. And
North Carolina. So if you're a recruit, you're not thinking about going to the University of South Carolina. I'm sorry, like it's just if you're a 5-star, you're trying to play at one of those places. And usually what happens is that they go to a top player and they're like, all right, I got to sit on the bench at Alabama, or I got to sit on the bench at Georgia, so I'll settle with South Carolina. And I think that's the problem. I think we're getting guys that are settling because they can come in and play right away. Because to a fan, a 5-star is like, oh my goodness, we can throw this 5-star in the game, he's ready to play. But what made my class and the class a couple years after me so special was that a lot of the dudes we had were 2 and 3 stars. The only 5 stars we had was Marcus, Stephon, and then Clowney. But when you go look at Melvin Ingram, you go look at Eric Norwood, at Kenny, Jared Cook, you go look at all these guys. We were 2 and 3 star guys. Steven Garcia, and we had that chip on our shoulder where we wanted to go out and prove to the Nick Sabans, the Mark Ricks, the Urban Meyers that, okay, you didn't recruit me because you thought I wasn't good enough. Well, this is my chance to get back at you. And that's why in 2010 we had that run the way we did, because it was more of a redemption tour. Like, we're going to prove it to everybody that told us we weren't good enough to play here. And that's why we were able to make as much noise as we did. And then the players end up coming with the top, with the 4 and 5 stars. But for the most part, man, our nucleus and our core guys were 2 and 3 stars. And I feel like we don't do a good job of recruiting those type of players in our area. I think for the most part, the first thing they want to do is leave the state to go recruit. And it's like we're missing out on the guys that go to go to the Georgias or go to the Appalachian States or whatever, and they go ball out. We're like, damn, we could have had them at South Carolina, but we're out there chasing the 5-star guys. So that's something it takes a Gamecock to know one. And if it was up to me and I was on the staff, I would have coaches that played at South Carolina, because we understand what that chip on our shoulder is.
For sure. And I want to point something out you said earlier, too, about MustChamp, is that I think what the problem is, and one of the trigger points, is people take it so personal when you make the comments like you said. And what people, I think, have to understand is, and listen, I understand it, and I've learned this, Tori, doing what I do, and I know you already know this, but with college athletics, it's so much different than NFL. Because NFL, you can just call a guy a bum. You don't have – I mean, you can – hey, Eagles lose yesterday to the Redskins. I'm seeing everything about Doug Peterson. Carson Wentz is the worst. I saw somebody say Carson Wentz is a waste of a human being. Nobody bats an eye, right? Because he's paid. He's paid very handsomely to do what he does. But at the college level, it's a lot different. Coaches are like family. Players are like your kids. Hey, I had somebody point this out. In recruiting, every player is good. Have you ever heard of a recruiting service when a school gets a commit go, that kid's really not that good, that's a bad pickup for them? You would never do that. Nobody would ever do that, right? Correct. So it's a lot different. But what people have to understand is when you make like the statements you made about MustChamp, give your opinions on it. When I give my opinions on it, it's literally nothing personal. But when you get paid over $4 million a year to do a job and you're not getting that job done and you're at a school like South Carolina, I said this to somebody on social media the other day. The beauty about this Will Muschamp thing, because it's polarizing to talk about it, because I feel like the fan base, for whatever reason, so split on it. They're so split on it. But the beauty about it, it's going to play out in the field, because South Carolina has too good of resources and facilities. They got too loyal of a fan base. They're in the best conference in the country, and there's too much talent to accept anything less than winning. So he's either going to win or get fired. Like, there's no middle ground there, which I guess is calming in a sense for me, because it's like we're not going to have to, I guess, go back and forth on it forever.